welcome to another episode of The Last Chat. Welcome to everybody that's listening to me on the podcast. Welcome to everybody that's watching the replay on YouTube. Welcome to everybody that's watching me live on Facebook Live. We're going to jump right in with the questions. We're going to start with question number 1. We're talking about Season 6, Episode 4, There Will Be Blood. Question number 1. Do you think that Frost is going to ask Caitlin to help with this cure, which would make the most sense? Personally, I don't think she will, because for some reason they seem to, I won't say that they're phasing Caitlin out, but they seem to be downplaying Caitlin for some reason. Maybe they thought it was better to give Frost more FaceTime. Maybe Danielle wanted to play Frost more. I'm not sure. I'm not actually sure what's going on there yet. But it seems like to me that bringing Caitlin in, especially since she has prior knowledge of what Dr. Ooze was doing, would be the smart thing to do. But, you know, I could be wrong, so we'll see. Now, let me see what some of you guys are saying here on Twitter. Going to bring up, flashhead rules, okay. So going to bring up some answers to that question. So in the meantime, like I said, I don't understand exactly what they're doing with giving Caitlin less screen time. I'm not sure if there is strong narrative value in that. I'm not sure if they're going to pull a surprise out at the end, meaning there's something that only Caitlin can do, and she has more time out in the driver's seat to show that she has value, or she's the one that saves the day. Or, like I said before, maybe they'll end up splitting the two, Caitlin and Frost, so they can have separate lives, or maybe they'll end up merging them even further. That remains to be seen. All right, I've got an answer to question number 1 from Chris Kofer. He says, I'm not sure which would make the most sense. And I'm going to say it makes the most sense to involve Caitlin, because Caitlin already has prior knowledge. She has prior knowledge and is the only one that can understand the pure science. Okay? Caitlin's the only one that really understands the pure science of what's going on of Dr. Who's trying to cure himself, and how that does or does not have to involve dark matter. And remember, her father used dark matter to create the Frost power, so she knows a little something about changing DNA and chemistry. Okay? Considering how this is Fabiola. Considering how they have been dealing with Frost this season, Killer Frost is on her own. They have forgotten that Kate is a vital part of Team Flash. As for the cure, she should, but will she? I don't know. Fabiola is FABIOLA_ SEJQ, and I'm going to say to that, agree completely, because I still don't understand where they're going with giving Caitlin less FaceTime. Because I don't, as I said before, unless there's some kind of big payoff at the end, Polly says, P_Macor, MACHOR. Polly says, I don't think anyone should or will help with this cure thing. Someone has to remember the horrid idea this was before. This show doesn't learn. Those who forget history, ... are doomed to repeat it, which is what I'm going to answer. But don't you think both Caitlin and Frost would have some compassion in this very situation that plagued their family and created Frost and Icicle, by the way? So I think that the Frost-Caitlin combo would have some type of compassion if they're dealing with someone with incurable diseases and they're her father turned to cryogenics, and this dude is turned into his dark matter cure. The problem is, as we already know, is that he's already out of control and he's already a danger. That's the thing, something that the audience knows. But guess who sniffed that out right away? That would be Frost. She sniffed it out right away. And of course, Barry's like, yeah, no, give him the benefit of the doubt. No. And we don't know, and yeah, blah, blah, and just got on my nerves watching all that. Okay? Mauricio, en realidad nuoso, Enrealidadnuoso. This was the episode in which an expert in biology shone by its absence, while the inventor was made to think like a biologist. This whole episode was a carnival of nonsense. And I'm going to say, no, don't hold back. Tell me what you really think. He deserves a laugh emoji for that one, because Reese will be calling it like he sees it. Okay? I do too, but he's always funny. He always makes me laugh. Okay? Fabiolo again says that it's getting confusing now. Okay? All right, we're going to jump to question 2. Question number 2 is, it's clear that Dr. Ooze is not the main plot line this year. The crisis is. Do you prefer it when the big bad isn't the main element driving the story? Okay? Now, my answer to that is pretty much always the same. It depends on the writing. For example, I actually do prefer it when the storylines are integrated. I don't want them to necessarily come together at the end, running on parallel tracks, and everybody kind of has their own thing going, because that's kind of what the Flash has become. Like Ralph has his own thing going, and Iris has her own thing going with Team Iris, which is Iris, Allegra, Camilla, sometimes Joe and Cecile. Sometimes Joe and Cecile have their own adventure going. Sometimes they're teamed up with Ralph. And then there's what Barry's doing, okay? And normally Barry and Frost now. And I don't necessarily know if I like that. I mean, I already told you that the show's overcrowded, too many characters to try to deal with. But I think I like it a little bit better where if the big bad, even if we don't see them in the first part of the season, where what they're doing, all their villain shenanigans, was feeding into the main storyline. But the main storyline this year is the crisis. And that's separate from what's going on with Dr. Ooze. Okay, so, let's see what Polly says. Polly says, we've had a big bad for such a long time. It's a good change of pace for any series to change it a bit. But to me, this year seems awkward. Like they aren't doing enough but sowing their white flags in prep for crisis. And I'm going to say, yes, I prefer it when the villain shenanigans tie into the main plot. I don't like it when they are forced together at the end or end up not mattering at all. Okay? All right, so the awkwardness comes from, let me answer probably on that too. The awkwardness comes from it being literally a totally separate adventure. Dr. Ooze doesn't have anything to do with the looming crisis, which by definition makes him filler. Definition, he's just a filler. Just a filler villain, just a filler. Okay, all right. Okay, Fabiolo says, while we know that they are setting up crisis, they have been doing better in the villain terms as well. The main villain has a reason to act like Keyes is doing. They've given him a good backstory, unlike the previous one. Now, I'm going to say that's interesting. That's very interesting. You like his motivation because it's clear. Okay. Very interesting point of view. He does actually have very clear motivation, and his desire line is linear. It's straight through. So in other words, we know exactly what this guy wants and we know why he's doing what he's doing. So I do have to agree with that part is clear. Mauricio says, I have no problem with choosing any of those two alternatives, and not for the small inconvenience that the villain we are seeing is one-dimensional and frankly overacted. Oh, ouch. Once again, we take that the idea is not the problem, but the execution of it. And I'm going to say worlds of ouch on the one-dimensional villain and the overacting. Now, do you see what I mean about why it's so good to get different perspectives? Because you can have two people look at the same thing and they react completely differently. So one person is saying that they like the idea that the villain's motivations are clear and that we understand very clearly what's driving them. Okay. And another person is saying they find the presentation to be one-dimensional and overacted. Wow. So I'm sending an ouch gif with that one. Okay? All right. Polly says, back to question number one, if anyone does this, it should be Snow. We aren't seeing her at all, even when the situation demands it. Ralph needing treatment a few weeks ago, Bear should have told Snow about Crisis since Frost already knew, and this thing with the blood work. And I'm going to give that an unqualified amen, because everything Polly said was right. Once again, I can't figure it out. I can't see where they're going with it. You know, I hope they're not taking Caitlin away to make the storyline work, because that would be absolutely the worst thing they could do right now. If that's all this is that they're just taking Caitlin away because she could solve the problem faster, because the nature of the villain has to do with someone that she knows and someone that has to do with blood work and science that she understands. So we're just going to get her out of the mix to drag it on. If that's all this is, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that's irritating. Okay. Polly says, I'm sure you're going to mention this later, but should Cisco's training be the week before? Why start with Frost? You would think you want your runner-up to be with you while you train the others. I am going to talk about the choice of Cisco as leader, but Barry, we have to face it, is often a poor teacher because he is. I don't know why people keep saying that Barry's a good teacher. Many times Barry's a poor teacher. He doesn't, give his students specific goals or doesn't always give them parameters. He doesn't always give them like sometimes he doesn't even have the language to describe what he needs them to do. Many times things are last minute and things are under pressure because, this characterization of Barry Allen is always doing things last minute, not really thinking them through, doing them on impulse. He's much more like Impulse, the character Impulse, where he's just popping off at whatever's going on at the moment. And by this time, he ought to be a lot more thoughtful and pensive about things, but, so I don't know. Fabiolo says on answer 2, for just half a season, this is not just good enough, but excellent. It sets the tone just right, even for Crisis. The villain is dying, and so will the Flash soon. Also, that's very interesting. Okay. Hey there, everyone. David Taylor 2 here. I am so excited about the launch of the Nephilim Wars. This comic is a part of my War in Heaven series, which includes novels, coloring books, and an RPG. Nephilim are half-human, half-angel hybrids, where their dads are from heaven, but their moms are from Earth. My comic, The Nephilim Wars, is set at the end of the 30th century, and the Nephilim are breeding again, and not just humans. Yikes! Are they going to do the Irises from the Future storyline? And are they going to bring in any of the Marvels because they've referenced Eternium? Okay. And I really want to see the Marvels. That's been something I've been wanting to see on The Flash for a very long time. Okay? All right, Team Forward, the Team Forward, Forwod, the Team Forward says, to question number 3, well, he just got there, so we have to wait until another episode or 2 to judge. And I'm going to say to that, why do we have to wait? Shouldn't his personality be evident right away? Because Sherlock's was, or Sherlock or whatever. We knew who Sherlock was right away. So I don't agree that we have to wait. Okay. Fabiello says, question number 3. Now that's the part where this Wells is just helping for a greater deal crisis. He has a clear target. That's all he is here for. He will have a big role in crisis. So a lot of things are being done in the name of that. Okay. Do you think that this Wells is going to be the one that saves the day? Do you think that's what they're setting up for crisis, that somehow Nash Wells is the one that makes the difference? You know, it should be Barry that makes a difference, and hopefully they can save Barry from disintegration. And I'm wondering how they're going to do that, if they're actually going to let him die and then bring him back, or is it going to stop him from dying, or if somebody else dies in his place? Before they said that, the monitor said that Flash must die. He didn't say Barry Allen had to die, and that's the key. Okay. Okay, have to block another bot because these bots get on my nerves. Polly does a curtsy. All right. Mauricio says to question number 2 about Dr. Ooze is as if they had told Tom Hardy that he was going to be Venom, but there was no budget for special effects, so that he would have to make all the ridiculous faces. Wow, there's another ouch. Okay. Okay, people are not liking Dr. Ooze. Okay. All right, here we go with question number 4. Why doesn't Dr. Ooze test his cures on lab rats before trying them on himself? It doesn't seem like he has any real scientific method, you know, just like none whatsoever, okay? Mauricio says maybe they spent the budget for rats in the Supergirl costume. Ouch. Being a little more serious, if he followed a certain medical protocol, frankly, he wouldn't be in the mess he's in. I'm going to say yet another ouch, but you are correct, because he is correct. Because Dr. Ooze is in the mess he's in because of sloppy science. The end. Okay, Fabiola says, clearly he doesn't have the time or he's stated specific. Surely I have no idea. And I'm going to say that Dr. Ooze is in the mess he's in because of sloppy science. Okay, which is the truth. Simple as, okay? Okay, Polly says those poor rats don't have the disease he does. I think it's because they're trying to humanize yet another villain, a sob story so we feel bad for a bad guy. And I'm going to say, why can't they just let bad guys be bad these days? Okay? Because again, going back to Thawne as Wells, he just had his own agenda and he had no need to feel like he was good. And he killed Cisco, even though Cisco said, you know, he was a son to him. And he killed him. We'll never forget that. Cisco hasn't forgotten that either, by the way. How could you forget a super speed hand through your heart? But anyway, Polly says to answer 3, I want the Thawne Wells went back. He just ran away and they waved bye-bye. He's the best villain on the show. He will wait an eternity for his next chess move until he checkmates Barry. All true. Okay. All right, Team Forward says maybe that's another reason this season is better than it has been these past few seasons, since we don't have to watch them let the big bad get away. They literally just stood there last year and allowed Cicada to get away that easy. Okay, and to that I'm going to say I could not possibly agree more. Possibly agree more. That Cicada thing was tiring because it really was. They literally stood there over and over and over again and just let Cicada escape, and didn't react at super speed, didn't do what they could have done with the dagger. It was awful. It was, oh, I don't even want to think about it. Okay. But I still don't like, as I've said already, I still don't like the idea that Barry can't smell out that Dr. Ooze is up to no good. And he's not trusting Frost. I don't like that. Aurora Phlox, Aurora _ PHLOX, like Dr. Phlox from Enterprise, said he's like Indiana Jones Wells. And that's true, but that doesn't mean he's also not one-dimensional and boring. I'm also hearing some of the other accents creep into Kavanaugh's delivery. And at this point, I would say he probably can't help it. But, okay, question number 5. Is Indiana Wells' tech science or magic? Okay, because we've seen him use some very specific tech. Is it science or is it magic? Okay. Polly says, it seems tech out of the believable realm for even this show. I was talking to a few people about setting your world's boundaries. You can't just chalk everything else that doesn't make sense up to magic. When you make a world, you have to set what that world allows. And I'm going to give her a preach on that one. Because she deserves a preach for that one, because that one is 100% true. As a matter of fact, I am going to read that again, because this is where fans and people that follow the shows, I'm sorry, you can't make sci-fi fans be different from the way we are. And the way we are is we love detail. We get into the story worlds. We want to see the parameters. We want to understand everything that's going on in the story world and where the boundaries are and how the world works. And that's up to the writer, the author, the writer, the writers, to help us understand what's going on in that world. And when they violate their own canon, when they violate their own boundaries, when they violate the very world they set up, it just takes us out of it. And it's very, very irritating. Okay, so I'm gonna read Polly's answer again because it's so on point. She says, it seems tech out of the believable realm for even this show. I was talking to a few people about setting your world's boundaries. That's right. You can't just chalk everything else that doesn't make sense up to magic. When you make a world, you have to set what that world allows. See, those are the responsibilities of a responsible writer. Okay? And you have to pay attention to your canon, and your fans are going to call you on it every time. I know people just want to gloss it over. I know people want to say it's a fictional world. Fictional characters, that seems to be the common retort. But I don't care what you say, your fans are going to call you on the fact if you establish that a character can breathe underwater and then 3 episodes later they can't and there's no explanation. If you establish time travel and time travel works a certain way, and then 4 episodes later they do time travel in a completely different way with no explanation. You have to establish the boundaries and the parameters of the world and then stick to them. Okay, Mauricio still answering question 3. On this one, he says, I don't see things so complicated that they use the Iris of the future in this. After all, the writers of the show made Flash the most tragic hero of all. Now, I don't see the Marvels as feasible beyond a mention in a dialogue. That's really a shame, I'm saying. You think the Iris future storyline is too complicated? Okay, why? Okay, and what about those of you listening to the podcast or following me live on Facebook Live? Do you think the Iris from the future storyline is too complicated? You think they won't do it? You think they can't do it? You think they can't pull it off? Or do you think that it just, doesn't have a place on this show? I'm not really sure. I think they could do this just fine. It's just that, it's going to change everything if they make it so that Iris is from the future like she's supposed to be. And not only will it change everything, but it might change their relationship, because it makes me wonder if they're going to send Barry to the future like they do in the comics and have them hook up there, have them have their kids there, have their family there. I'm wondering at what point is Iris West Allen going to get pregnant? Is she going to get pregnant in today's timeline, Or is she going to get killed because Thawne kills her in the comics? Or, her parents going to snatch her, take her back to the future, her real parents? And because we find out that Joe either isn't really her dad, or we find out that Joe's also from the future. And then he goes back with Iris. That'll be a trip if we find out that Joe and Iris's late mom, either aren't her biological parents, or maybe Joe is and the mama wasn't, or maybe she was and she's gone, or maybe Joe West is from the 30th century. Okay. Polly's answering question 4 again. We have to play psychiatrist. We need to feel a believable reason why people are the way they are, because we are turning into a society where there is no evil for the sake of being evil. No one's bad just because they are bad. It's a trend in our society. All of that is very true. All of that is very true. And it's a matter of absolutely no one taking personal responsibility anymore. Absolutely no one. Because that's the society we live in now, where nobody's taking responsibility and everything is somebody else's fault. Okay, now Fabiolo has a good answer to question 3. If the theory is right, Nash is Pariah. Now Pariah is the character from DC Comics. Pariah in the comics was working on unlocking the secrets of the universe. Potentially he has found Monitor, but soon he will attract Anti-Monitor. Tom Cavanaugh is the key to this crossover. Now that you say that, I remember the picture, remember the spoiler picture where we see Wells in that Pariah costume. So I think you hit on the truth with this one. So all of a sudden that makes sense. All of a sudden, Wells being Pariah from the comics makes all the sense in the world. Okay. It's 1:30, so I should be on question 6 by now. So question 6. Cisco basically says he doesn't want to live in a world without Barry. So who loves Barry the most? Iris, Caitlin, or Cisco? Polly says, I think Cisco has this close connection with Barry, like when you can't imagine living without your best friend. Cisco helped Barry become the Flash. He supported the whole way. Another reason why he wouldn't give up his powers, and I'm going to say, I am still completely missing vibe. And just don't think that was necessary, getting rid of him. Because it wasn't. It was not necessary to get rid of Vibe on the show to make the other storylines work. Was not. Okay? All right. Fabiolo says, they all love him. I have my doubts over the type of love. That's interesting. As per the reaction of losing Barry, Cisco has had the most genuine reaction in the situation. Iris is taking this well, but we don't know what Kate thinks, but Killer Frost with one move understood it. She is Caitlin anyway. And I'm going to say amen to all of that. I think they are more merged than we're supposed to know. I think Iris is taking this a little too well. And as always, Cisco is indeed the most genuine. Yeah, I think Iris is taking this thing just a little too well. Losing Barry again. She's just a little bit too chill about it as far as I'm concerned. But maybe, to be fair and to be balanced on, what she's been through, she's lost him so much. Maybe she feels like, we overcame it in the past, or I'm not going to believe it till I see it, or, or they might do a thing like I told you before with Wally and Linda. Before Barry dies, Iris might whisper something like, Barry, come back to me, because she said stuff like that before. And then they'll say that was his lightning rod, his anchor, or whatever. He was able to pull himself out of nothingness because of Iris's love. Okay. Polly says on answer 5, I use this as an example because we have sci-fi and fantasy. If you make a story about a colony on Mars that makes enough oxygen, you can go out of the domes every Tuesday. You cannot have someone randomly run out on Wednesday and they're okay without oxygen and pressure suits. That's right. That's basically what I said. Fabiolo says on question 5, tech science, everything he does is weird. Plus, this show has never really established what is beyond belief in technology. And I'm going to say again, that's very true. 2 words, gold gun. Because I still think that gold gun, it's fun and it's funny, but it's the most ridiculous piece of tech. A gold gun, people, that is the most ridiculous piece of tech. And Cisco whipped it up in a day. Is it liquid gold? Does it solidify? Does it have a Midas touch? How? How does all that happen? So, okay. All right. Okay, question 7. Hold on, I'm pulling up question 7. Okay, this is not. La la la. Okay, let me just read it off my sheet because it wasn't coming up on the tweet. Question 7. There it is. Barry wants Cisco to take over. Who would be the best leader of Team Flash in Care Bear's absence? My money is on Joe West because I do think Joe West would be the most qualified. Okay, all things considered, I think Joe is the right way to go. Not necessarily Cisco, because Cisco, I don't know, he doesn't have the objectivity or detachment that a cop would, because a seasoned cop would know how to be objective, more so than I think Cisco is. And a seasoned cop would know how to be a little bit more detached from everything, because cops see so much all the time, they know they can't get emotionally involved in every case, and keep their own sanity. And that's all Cisco ever does, is get over emotionally involved in every case. So I think, as much as I love Cisco, don't get me wrong, I think Joe is a better replacement. Okay, Polly says, we have to step back here and figure out what Barry is actually wanting for the future according to what is needed. If we need medical care for injured people like DeVoe, we need Snow. If we need the tech to survive the aftermath, we need Cisco. I think it's more of who we need, who can handle an after crisis more, a cop. We need Joe, but he will have his hands full with normal police business now that he's captain. And I'm going to say, but Cisco is always over emotional and lacks the objectivity to effectively lead, I think. Okay? Because it is what I think. Love Cisco, but I don't think he would be the strongest leader given all the parameters of Team Flash and all the things they would have to deal with. Back on question 5, Mauricio says, for any primitive civilization, advanced science is not distinguishable from magic. True. They said that in Thor. So. Answer 6, Mauricio says, when I saw this episode, I commented that it was only missing that they both kissed. Sorry, Iris, but Cisco had more chemistry with Barry. Mauricio, man, bringing the hammer. And I'm going to say yet another ouch. Woo! That's the serious hammer right there. Cisco's got more chemistry with Barry than Iris, is what Mauricio is saying. Wowzers. Okay. All right. Vibe wanted to have this Polly. Vibe wanted to have a family. Okay, I get that, but there's nothing in his power profile that says he couldn't. Camilla accepted him 100% as Vibe instantly after knowing him and loving him as Cisco first. Therefore, it was just a plot, whatever the heck they do on this show. Yeah. Just a plot, whatever the heck. Because there's no reason Cisco had to give up his powers to have a family. He could have stayed Vibe and had a family. And here's my thing. I've been saying this from the jump. What's going to happen when him and Camilla break up? Because now you're going to have somebody out there that knows all the secrets of Team Flash. She's not his wife. They're not married. They didn't make a permanent commitment. They're just dating. Okay, Joe and Cecile are married. Okay? Barry and Iris are married. But now Camilla has all this information, and if I was a villain or if Camilla, turns on Cisco or whatever, now she knows all this stuff about Team Flash. So I think it was a mistake to bring her all the way in the fold like that, but whatever. Okay, Fabiolo, back on question 3, says that's not all though. Remember what the Reverse Flash said to Barry the last time he met him, see you in our next crisis. And I'm going to say, ooh, that's right. Ooh, that's right. So Eobard might be a part of this one too. I'm hoping they don't go to the Eobard well too many times, because normally when they overuse a villain, they become lame. But I don't know. Okay. Question 8. I'm glad to see that they're bringing in Sue for Ralph. What I do not want to happen are the events of Identity Crisis. Agree or disagree? Now, for those of you that don't know, spoiler alert. Now, Identity Crisis has been out for a long time, so if you haven't read it by now, sorry. In Identity Crisis, Sue Dibney is raped and murdered and burned and disfigured. And when Ralph finds her body, she's mutilated. She's like a burned shell, and it's awful. It's awful. It's one of the worst things that's ever happened to a DC Comics character. And out of all the people for it to happen to, it happened to the one person that loved Ralph unconditionally, the one person who wasn't impressed by Superman or Batman or Green Lantern, any of the, bigger names, if you will, but only had eyes for her Ralph. And they loved each other, and they're one of the best couples in comics. And they didn't just kill Sue, they mutilated and brutalized this woman in Identity Crisis. And in an effort to ramp up Dr. Light, in an effort to make Dr. Light a more serious villain, because Dr. Light had always kind of been a joke of a villain. So in an effort to make him be taken more seriously, we find out that he was a rapist, and we find out that he had his mind wiped by Zatanna. And Batman didn't know about it, and Batman was livid. And they mind wiped a lot of people to both hide the rape and hide their secret identities. And all the grits hit the pan in Identity Crisis. And so, oh my goodness, it was intense, okay? Fabiolo says that the CW is incapable of doing that during Identity Crisis, so they better stay out of it. Critical Blast, spelled just like it sounds, Critical Blast, says, no Identity Crisis, please, but do give them their own show and use his powers more. Now, I'm going to say that means getting them off the Flash so we can return to a focus on Barry. I'm all for it. I love Ralph and Sue, but he eats up too much screen time on this show. Starting to feel like maybe they're having budget issues because we don't see enough powers on the show anymore. Maybe that's why they got rid of Vibe, because they couldn't afford to show the powers. I don't know. Polly says on question 8, I'm glad they're bringing in Sue about time, but I'm not sure what you mean about Identity Crisis. Okay, I'm going to have to look up the Wikipedia. And of course, I'll probably read it because she hasn't read the book. And again, if you have never read Identity Crisis, just go in getting ready for your heart to be broken, because it's awful. And I'm not going to tell you all the twists and turns. I've given you, most of them, giving you the basic idea. But, it so fundamentally changes the way you see so many characters. Holy cow. It so fundamentally changes the way you see so many longtime DC characters until, ugh. Okay, Mr. Batman, which is Nightwing, Night with a K, KNIGHTWING 19 says, yes, we don't need to revisit that, and I don't think the CW could do it with the maturity and seriousness that story deserves. And I'm going to say, that's well said on all points. It would need serious gravitas. Plus, we won't have known Sue that long if they're just now introducing her, which they are. So you really need years with Ralph and Sue. You really need to see them in action. You really need to see them as the loving couple that they are to understand why Identity Crisis was such a buster. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're going to move on to question 9. What do you suppose will be the mistake that Cisco can't fix? What will he do? Inadvertently cause the death of Camilla? Because they alluded during the episode of, sometimes if you don't pull up or stay balanced or whatever, you're going to make mistakes you can't fix. Whenever the show does that type of heavy foreshadowing, that means something like what they said is definitely going to happen. So Cisco, no wonder I'm so dark. I should have put my light on by now. Sorry. So Cisco is going to do something that causes some kind of damage. And I really, really hope it's not the death of Camilla, but it probably will be, knowing them, because that's kind of what they do is, kill girlfriends. So Fabiolo says, oh, come on, I fear for Caitlyn, though. Polly says, I instantly thought giving up his powers, now he's defenseless against everything. And I'm going to say to Fabiolo, what do you mean you fear for Caitlyn? Do you think they'll kill her? Let me pose that same question to my podcast audience and my live audience. Do you think they'll kill Caitlyn off this show? If you're watching this on YouTube, I want you to put some questions and some responses in the comments below. Do you think they'll kill Caitlyn off the show? Because that would be one of the worst mistakes they can make, because she's truly the heart of this show, and I can't imagine the Flash without Caitlyn. She's become such a part of the reason that I tune in, until I don't know if I would keep watching if they off Caitlyn. I don't even understand, again, what the point of that would be. Let me see if I got some more answers to question 9. Okay, no. Let me see more answers before I jump over to question 10. Okay. Okay, Tazardy, which is simply Taz21, SIMPLYTAZ21, says to question 7, I agree with Cisco as long as it isn't Iris. Cisco is a great leader. It's just the writers treat him like he doesn't know what he's doing. Oh. So he's better than he's written most of the time, which is kind of common for the show, I'm sad to say. Nerfing everybody. Okay, let's talk S.H.I.E.L.D., spelled just like it sounds. Let's talk S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. is SHIELD, by the way. Question number 8. If Identity Crisis were erased from the memory of the world, I would be a happy camper. It is one of the few comics that I loathe, and the thought of it just puts me in a foul mood. It drove me from comics for a decade, so I agree that it should never happen again. Wow, that's what I'm typing, I'm saying. To that, I say, wow. Because you're right. Because he's right. They didn't just kill Sue, they brutalized her and ruined many of the other DC heroes. I'm telling you, man, Identity Crisis. Some people have compared it to The Killing Joke. The Killing Joke was very much about the Joker, the Gordons, and Batman. So it's a little bit of a tighter circle. Identity Crisis was about not just Sue, but the whole Justice League and the secrets behind how they've been keeping their secret identities all those years. And, the secrets that they have from one another in terms of mind wipes. So it's a little bit of a bigger scale when the heroes themselves are getting mind wiped by Zatanna to forget certain events, and where the villains are getting mind wiped to forget that they know who the heroes are in their civilian identities. That's how deep it was. And in terms of a concept, I think that's a pretty good concept, but the execution of this particular book was brutal. Nobody comes out the better for it. Nobody comes out looking good. There's no upside to what happens in Identity Crisis. Literally no upside. Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay? Okay. Brennan, Seth9, S6Ep4 says, agree 1,000%. Sue didn't deserve it then and doesn't ever again. No one does. They're such a wholesome couple. They don't deserve to be dragged through the next attempt to make the universe darker and edgier for the sake of a misguided idea of realism. And I'm going to say that that's spot on, because that is spot on. I'm actually going to read that again. I'm going to give him a preach gif, because he's preaching and he's right. So the question about, bringing Sue on and Identity Crisis, Brennan says, I agree 1,000% that they don't need to do it. Sue didn't deserve it then, which is true, and doesn't ever again, also true. No one does. They're such a wholesome couple, okay? This reminds me a lot about the, get rid of the past, kill it if you have to. That, they're trying to do everything they can to murder and snuff out the positivity and the bright side of the DC universe, and Identity Crisis is one of those books. They're such a wholesome couple, Ralph and Sue. They don't deserve to be dragged through the next attempt to make the universe darker and edgier for the sake of a misguided idea of realism. That's right, man. That is right, man. That is 100% right. That is so right. Okay. Okay, I got to move on to question 10. Team Flash Frost against Resident Evil zombies. I'm so glad they weren't a problem. However, Frost could have used her ice slide to follow Dr. Ooze. Why didn't she? Why didn't Frost just ice slide after him? Okay. Okay, Mauricio says, already quite painful it was to see Barry let someone die. On top of that, he had to suffer the humiliation of seeing Frost do something more useful than him. Okay. Critical Blast says budget. Okay. Christian Borgia, Sniper Strike, says budget issues. Polly says, I think Killer Frost this year is 2 words, budget cuts. I was excited we were going to get more Frost. I didn't know that meant snow and cosplay. Oh! Snow and cosplay. Yikes. And I'm going to give her a hashtag burn on that one. Oh man, snow and cosplay. They have so nerfed Frost and tried so hard to make her be Caitlyn or Diet Caitlyn or almost Caitlyn or barely Caitlyn until, Anyway, let's talk S.H.I.E.L.D. is saying, making some more comments on Identity Crisis, and he's saying, it was a fundamental misunderstanding of virtually every character involved. Clark and Diana don't ignore things because it's easier. Oliver doesn't allow a vote to decide something that he's morally and ethically against. Carter caves in Light's skull for threatening Shayera that way. Yeah, agree. They're all written so poorly. And they are. As a matter of fact, we can say that in Identity Crisis, I'm going to write this. In fact, we can say that in Identity Crisis, we are looking at the Justice Thugs, because we are. That's what I would subtitle Identity Crisis, is the Justice Thugs, because that's what's happening. Okay, that was question 10 about the ice slide. But most people said budget on that one, which is true. Question 11. Dr. Ooze's powers are starting to remind me of Parasite. How does Superman normally stop Parasite, and would that work in this case? Okay? Normally, Superman puts Parasite in some type of power dampening enclosure, so he can't really harness his powers, because Parasite has gotten to the point where he smells power, he feels the energy and the power from great physical distances, and his absorbing ability is stronger. So normally Superman has to dampen that down to keep Parasite in check. Polly says, I can't answer this. I'm not too much of a Superman fan. Okay, well, so I just answered it. So I don't know if it would work in this case with Flash, if Flash could somehow dampen these ooze powers, but that leads me into question 12, but I'll get there in a minute. I want to read some of these other answers. Answer 10 from Fabiolo, probably budget, but they let Cicada leave so many times last year, so she just adopted the team style. That's kind of funny. Ashley, what's up, Ashley? Ashley is at, SHYESPLEASE. So it's actually Ash as please, or Ash yes please, but the A is the @ symbol. Answer 10, and Barry could have easily ran after him. But I think they didn't pursue mainly because they didn't know what was going on with Ramsey and how it could affect them just yet. And also budget. So everybody's saying budget, so maybe that's what's actually going on here. Entirely possible. We've seen that happen on shows before, but on a superhero show, it just really it's jarring, and you can see it. You can see, okay, Greg Anderson, my good friend Greg. Greg Anderson is Greelan, Grelan. On Identity Crisis, he says no. Identity Crisis was the worst thing to happen in DC, and I've read both Heroes in Crisis and that weird annual when Batman and Superman got visited by tentacle monsters because their friendship was so, let's say, close. Wow. Wow. And I'm going to ask Greg, was Identity Crisis worse than Killing Joke? And those of you that are watching this on YouTube, answer that question for me in the comments. Was Identity Crisis, you have to have read both comics, was Identity Crisis worse than The Killing Joke? Okay? I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about that, because I'm sure some people will say yes and some will say no. But they both kind of involve the same kinds of things, but the reaction to them by the heroes involved are very, very different. Okay, so I'm scrolling through for some more answers. Thomas Mallory, T-Mal761 says, I don't think they'll go that far admitting Identity Crisis. I hope they don't rape and kill and burn Sue. I really, really don't. Even though we're just meeting her, I don't want to see Ralph go through all that again. I really don't. Answer 10, that's all Caitlin is anymore. I really don't know how hard it would be to take off the wig and wipe off the lipstick once in a while. True. Okay. All right, so we're going to go to the last question, question 12, and here it is. Question 12, the show finally went back to one of its key roots, the love of a father to a son. I still say Barry and Joe are the best relationship on the show. Agree or disagree? I mean, in terms of feeling the love, Chris Colfer fan says, I agree. And I'm going to answer by saying, in terms of feeling the love, Jesse L. Martin brings it every time. Brings it every single time. Because he really does. I mean, he always makes us feel that no one loves Barry like he does. And, this time, I don't know, man. They should. I said it on Twitter, they should have changed it from the Flash to the Fields because they, they just brought it so hard, and Joe said he wasn't ready for Barry to go, and he's lost Barry before, but he's taken it just as hard as he always has, if not harder. And I just, I mean, you have to have no heart to not be moved by the way Joe West loves Barry Allen on this show. You just have no heart. Just forget it. Don't try to front like you got a heart. No, you don't, if you're not moved by the love of a father to his son, as they show it on the show. I'm going to write that down. You have to have no heart to not be moved by the way Joe loves Barry. Because you do. But just throwing in a reminder that makes Barry and Ira siblings because they call the same man dad and were raised in the same house. Okay. Let's Talk Shield. Answer 12 says, I totally agree. Jesse L. Martin is an incredible actor and he brings out the best in Grant as an actor. In fact, he does that with everyone. Yes. As I think we've discussed in the past, Joe is the heart of the show for me. Joe and Barry's relationship feels true on every level. And I'm going to say absolute agreement. It is, in fact, all of the veteran actors that elevate the material on this show. Jesse, John Wesley Shipp, and Tom Cavanaugh. It's those three men, Barry's three fathers, his biological dad, Ann J. Garrett, his science dad, Eobard Thorne, and his stepdad, his adopted father, Joe West. It's those three men and those three actors that elevate all the material on The Flash. Period, dot, the end. Don't care if you don't like it or agree. Okay? Okay. Polly says, I agree. Every freaking time Joe has anything to say, I find it powerful, especially to Barry. Then again, Jesse L. Martin has made me cry throughout the years with his performances. That's right. Duke Lips Now says, agree totally. Mauricio says, absolutely agree. Okay. Absolutely agree. Okay. Joe West loves Barry. Okay. All right. That's it. Flash Chat is always the fastest hour alive. Join us same time next week. And don't forget to listen to the Flash Chat podcast, which you are doing right now. If you're on the podcast, I'm just reading my tweet where you get the full show and I read and answer your tweets. Because I always give more extensive answers here, on the podcast and on the live stream and on the video, because I can go into more detail, more than I can ever type. Okay. Thank you so much. This hour always flies. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening in, joining in. There's a new episode of Flash on tonight. That means we'll be back same time next week, 1:00 p.m. Central Standard Time for the next episode of Flash Chat. Thanks, and you guys have a great week. Like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. And enjoy.